Hey everybody, my name is Chris Hoffman. This is my digital project for 3235, the American novel. Just for some preface, I used Screencast or Screenomatic, and I'm using Google Slides as well. So for some context, white noise, I did the first paragraph at the very beginning of the book. On the right, you'll see the actual passage from the book. I used an image, and I also underlined, and everything I've underlined is referenced on the left, which I'll be reading from and going over with you. Station wagons give us a context of time. The classic station wagon, family car. 80s, 70s, 80s, West Campus, dormitory, suitcases, students. These are all words associated with going to college, camp, anything like that. Definitely overnight type styles. We still don't know what's going on yet, but he is definitely doing some foreshadowing here as he contextualizes this paragraph. The entire bottom half of this paragraph contextualizes the people that are in this scene through the belongings and things they have brought in general. This half of the paragraph also gives the reader a reference of what is about to come as far as DeLillo's writing style. The narrator/speaker. As far as the speaker and narrator goes, DeLillo starts off in the third person. Look as he begins each sentence in the third person. If you just look here, as I highlighted, the start of each sentence, you can almost see where his style starts to change, which we'll get more to in format. The voice sounds detached from the action he describes, as though just observing, but at the same time a part of this moment. This changes from third person to first at the very beginning of the second paragraph, starting with I, where DeLillo then identifies the narrator with protagonist Jack Gladney. Characterization. As far as characterization goes in this excerpt, DeLillo uses the setting and what is going on around him to begin individualizing his story. Words like West Campus, students, dormitories define that we are in some sort of college atmosphere. Once again, characterization of the place as well. Soccer balls, radios, basically the entire bottom half of the paragraph, which is underlined here, as you can see, is describing people and characterizing their culture through things, through objects, and that's what DeLillo is using, and that is obviously a common theme he uses throughout the entire novel. Setting. The setting of this scene is created by the following underlined words, as you can see on the right. Station wagons, as well as a list of objects at the bottom, gives us the time period. I don't know if you remember station wagons from Chevy Chase in that vacation movie, but that's the thing that pops into my head. Anytime you see a station wagon, it's like the van of our time, where you're dropping your kids off at school, dropping them off at college, whatever you want to call it, because that type of car, it just explains a lot using that specific car, station wagon. Words like West Campus, once again, sets us up for the setting, the mention of all objects, students, suitcases, students racing outside to unpack, allude to the first day of school or some kind of orientation. Sequence of events. This first paragraph is in chronological order, as DeLillo describes what he's seeing around him. Right here, the station wagon arrived at noon toward the dormitories. You could see that he is looking around and things are happening, and he's describing them in the time as they are happening. Language. Once again, this is in the third person. Repetition of objects, foreshadowing the theme of materialism. This is all happening in these underlined passages right here. That repetition is the repetition of a theme. In language. The list of objects also characterizes the people within the setting. Once again, this language is helping us characterize not only the writer, but also everybody else in the scene through the use of objects and materials. Diction. DeLillo decides not to use slang in the first paragraph until he starts talking about food. Compared to the rest of the novel, this is quite clean. He refers to drugs as controlled substances here. A great example of wording being simple, but not too dull, almost controlled in a way. Third person. Once again, he's writing in the third person. This is the only time he does this in this beginning. The writing here is not complex, but not written in a way where it would be considered completely tame. So it is not too complex. That's in my opinion, but at the same time, it's not dull. He still keeps us interested. Waffles and gablooms are the only words that can be considered slang or just generalization for food and brand names. So, the question is, jerk, food, I have no idea what that is. I looked it up, could not find anything. These waffles, gabloons are probably a brand he is referring to. Other than that, the diction is just changes throughout the book comparatively. This is quite clean. Repetition. Once again, the only repeated word that I saw in this passage was station wagon. Not to get back into the station wagon rant, but I don't know if any of you guys picture that in your head. The family station wagon, the classic family vehicle, dropping them off. And we still don't realize at this point the Hitler Youth of all this entire thing. Is what this school actually is. Because we're not there yet. Repetition of objects is in a list of objects, bottom half of the paragraph, which we see underlined here. Once again, this is an example of repetition. He's repeating not the same words, but he's repeating the same themes over again. Why did he choose to do this? Why did he choose not to just say they brought their suitcases in and dropped them off? Instead, he describes the contents, and he goes into great detail, taking up half of the first paragraph, 3/4 if. Form, third person, simple sentence structures. Lines start to get choppy when he begins to list other students are bringing. You can see with this blue line here that at the very beginning, standard, a structure. There's the standard sentence structure. And as you move down to where this red line begins, from here on out, you start to get that style, that form, all of the little foreshadowing the rest of how he is going to describe most people here. And how his style of writing really starts to pop out. Grammar, punctuation, mechanics. Once again, we're going to that. We're pushing towards that. As far as punctuation goes, the little starts off a simple sentence structure, and everything seems to be standard, like this top here, these first two sentences. The third sentence in, underlined in red, where DeLillo begins to push the rules of grammar using more commas and semicolons to give the style of this liquid prose in which the sentences blur into one another. Right here underlined, you can see this sentence is huge. But the way he puts it, the way he lists it, and I can't waste time reading it, I've already done it several times, I'm over time now. Tone. The tone of this paragraph changes as the narrator switches from third person to first person paragraph from there on out. So basically the tone is something that we've already gone into. Imagery. The image of youth. If you follow these arrows to each one, you notice that the image of youth here, students springing out. It's like first day of college, the station wagon. Once again, we're pointing out here the image of the family, the image of the first day of school, dropping off, getting started, starting anew, that fresh feeling. Food down here, once again, made very apparent. There's an interesting dynamic I'll explain in themes and order, which we don't find out until later, that this is a camp, not a camp, a school for the Hitler Youth. And this sign in single file the E's, and that's just some simple foreshadowing. Themes. Materialism and objects. Obviously, that's one of the biggest things. It's here in red, or encapsulated on this line. Everything down at the bottom. This is all materialism referencing that is going throughout the entire book. This moment of youth here in blue. That is another big theme throughout the entire book that is played, that he's foreshadowing here as well. If you look at this top, and this is the one thing I really want to get to, this top here, and as it goes down, just look at these lines. This list of objects that he starts to talk about begins with necessity, things that they need for college. Clothing, blankets, boots, shoes, stationery, books, etc., pillows, things you need. And then as he goes down and begins to list more, styling irons, tennis rackets, things for entertainment. So we get this necessity versus entertainment. And then he goes back, oddly enough, to necessity, but not real necessity. He goes to junk food, where there's this interesting blend and combination of, a dynamic there of, is this a necessity or not, because it is still considered food. Either way, I don't want to take up too much of your time, guys. I could go on forever. It took me long enough to get it down to this much. I hope you guys have a great night and enjoy this presentation.